Shuba. The easiest way to remember my name is Shoebox without an X. Or you can call me by my Starbucks name, which is Sue, which you can imagine even that gets butchered at Starbucks. So that's a
Ah,
conversation.
and I'm originally Russian, and Shuba is like fur coat.
Fur coat, I was told in
So,
Russian it means a big
yeah,
expensive fur coat. I was like, I'll take that.
yeah.
But faux fur, I'm animal friendly. Uh,
That's fair. That's fair.
Um, I'm like many of you, a product leader, spent many years building consumer products at the intersection of machine learning, data science at companies like eBay, Walmart, and most recently was the head of product at Fanatics, which arguably is the world's largest digital sports tech company. And over the last year, almost a year and a half now, I've shifted to having a portfolio career of AI work. I'm all in on AI. I'm tinkering myself every day, but my mission is to help leaders, teams, organizations, and each one of you thrive with AI, not just manage it, deal with it, understand it, but like really thrive with AI. And I do feel that that is possible. I'm excited to be here today. Thank you again.
Awesome. And Suba has an amazing course starting in January, Master Enterprise Grade AI Agents. So you can find it there, but we'll get to talk about that later on as well. And in terms of me, many of you are familiar with me as well. I've been in the product space for a really long time now, over 20 years. Started my career at BlackRock, moved into open table liquid space next door brain trust. So held various VP, GM, and CPO roles. And then like Suba, but more recently, I've went into a portfolio career. So what I spend my time doing now is advising companies doing fractional, which is a fancy word for consulting work with teams around product strategy, AI enablement, and growing their teams. And in addition to that, I teach two different courses here on Maven. One is really for folks in the director, senior PM levels that are looking to advance to that VP, CPO roles. And so we focus on some of the skills necessary to work on the business and operate at the business level. And the second piece, we'll spend some of that time today with Suba on communication. A lot of us spend the majority of our days speaking to other people, convincing other people. So AI-powered executive communication is focused on that. How do you deliver messages within your company? How do you leverage AI systems to get out of that work of constantly rehashing information? And then how do you represent your company? And you can find me in different places like Substack. This will be posted on Substack afterwards with additional kind of templates and tools that you all can use. All right, so today we're going to start with a survey Suba and I sent you all to just diagnose some of the big problems we all had in terms of the time sinks for people. And then we'll workflow the mapping, or I'm messing up the words. We'll map the workflow before we build the agentic systems underneath. So yeah, happy to dive into that. So the first piece, which was really interesting to me, is we sent out a survey to a lot of you, and about 80 people responded. And the interesting findings for both of us is 70% of PMs take about half a day a week on product updates. And in terms of what takes up the majority of that time, so 32% is translating for execs the various pieces of what your team, what other teams are doing. So for that, I have a Substack called the Executive AI Stack that talks about how do we take that time out of our days and use AI to rehash that information. So check that out. I'll drop a link into the notes shortly. And then the second piece, and where we're going to spend a lot of time today, where Shuba is going to take us through how agents can help us there, is chasing people for inputs. And so we're going to walk through that. component. So let me stop sharing my screen so I can share some fun links with you and transfer it over to Shubha.
Awesome. So you guys ready to start the
I'm
discussion
ready.
on CP?
Energy. I know it's Christmas week, but we can make it to Friday.
I know, right? Um,
Oh,
so just a couple of disclaimers before I get into the actual nuts and bolts of what we're going to do. The goal of this exercise and this time for us is to inspire you to solve your problems with an AI first approach. And product updates obviously is top of mind for all of you. That's a key part of the communication lever that Elena talks about in terms of like the CPO toolkit. Um, but really, how do you take an AI first approach to be able to solving it? That's the goal of this exercise. This is not a theoretical exercise on AI agents, agentic workflows, which, by the way, are two different things. We'll get into that. And so the assumption is that you've already heard about agents, know a little bit about it, although I will cover it in some detail if I need to double click anywhere. Um, the second is that there are a million ways to do product updates, right? Having worked at many companies, having now consulted for a few companies, and I'm sure all of you can agree with this, which is I've not seen any two companies do product updates the same way. In fact, not even the two same teams sometimes within the same company. Um, but for the purposes of our time here, we're going to standardize kind of like a template, but know that this is changeable according to what you feel is appropriate for your team and for your company. The third is that there are also multiple AI-led ways of solving a problem. Agents, agentic, again, differences, automation. We will see one approach today, but I'll touch upon what other options there are, again, to inspire you to be able to go and tinker on your own to see if this is possible and workable and useful for you. For our limited time today, I have pre-built a workflow just so we can move forward more reliably and have more time for questions and discussion. Regarding questions and discussions, I love to take questions as they come along, not take everything at the end. Um, but with a small caveat that if I'm in the middle of showing something, I'll just finish that so that and then get to the questions. So keep the questions coming in chat. Elena and I will both monitor it. You will help everybody by asking more questions and elevating all of our understanding. Cool. Any questions here before we move in? Okay, so let me first share the first part of this exercise, which, as the agenda said, we're going to map the workflow first. Then we're going to apply AI solutions, of which there are many options. And then we're going to actually see the AI in action, right? So there are 3 steps to this. So let me know when you all can see my Figma screen.
thumbs up.
Elena, could you post the Figma screen for everybody, or would you want to do that in your Substack moving
The
forward,
Figma link.
the Figma link?
Yeah, let me do that and share it later.
Okay, that sounds good. All right. Typical workflow of a product update for a CPO, VP of product, right? I'm saying there are 2 parts to this. The first one is the actual step and the details. And the second one, so the problem, if you may. And then the second one is the AI solution and the details associated with that. By the way, if you're seeing what is HITL, that's human in the loop. It's just another acronym. Um, so let's focus first on the problem. What is the workflow that we all have? And I hope I'm not like very wrong here by saying it's kind of like a 5-step flow that most people have in their teams and companies, starting with the first one is triggering the initiation of the process, like a Thursday morning email to your directs that says, time to get the product updates in by Thursday end of day, because we have to send it out by Friday, for instance. The second step is to gather the inputs. The third step is synthesizing all of the inputs in a more readable, digestible way. The fourth is tailoring it to audiences. And this is, could be to everybody in the company, to the product team, to an e-team peers, to the board. And, these take different variations in times. And then the fourth is actually distributing it and being available for Q&A. My understanding is that from the survey results, gathering inputs and tailoring it to the audience where the biggest time, blowers, if you may. Um, so pause, quick questions. Does this framework resonate with you? Do you want to change anything dramatically here before we go on?
We're feeling good.
You're feeling good about this. Okay, let's now spend 2 minutes on understanding the two biggest problems here, which you have said through the survey is gathering inputs and tailoring to the audience. What is the problem here? Feel free to type the input and Elena will tell me because I can't see the chat right now. Or feel free to come on live and actually explain what the problem is. And for some reason, I'm not able to edit my own slide. Why is that?
I think for me, it's always the chasing. You ask when I ask my team, it's like get the updates in by Thursday at 4, and then there's the 2 or 3 people who don't, and then there's the nagging on Slack, the email, the personal text message.
Absolutely. The following up,
Mm-hmm.
the nagging, the repeatability of it, the low reliability of it. I found that, different team leaders on my team took that very differently because,
Mm-hmm.
if they had a 911, for instance, they were not going to, give me exactly the kind of update that I was looking for. So
Exactly. I think
priorities.
Bharathi mentioned, and if I'm butchering your name, I'm sorry, different forms of input that is in Jira, Confluence, emails, documents. So not only
Great,
chasing people, but
great point. Great point. Yeah. Bharati, you're going to like what you see, hopefully. I shouldn't preempt it, but yeah, totally.
and then
Forms of input.
Don mentioned, and then that rolls into Friday and delays your ability to get your stuff done. Yeah. So you have to not only do your stuff, but context switch to follow up with people.
Yeah, like when is the right time to do this? Is it the end of the week? Is it the middle of the week? Is it the beginning of the week? I've never figured this out in many different companies that I've worked with. Like it's always learning and iterating based on kind of like what the E team and the team expects, but I feel like there's never a perfect time. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
all right, let's
Emmy
move on.
mentioned,
Oh, yeah,
okay, do
sorry.
you need
Yeah.
more? Inputs need to support info like data, which also takes chasing. Prasanna
Yeah.
mentioned consolidation, getting content that matters, that I think Shubha mentioned before. Language inconsistency. And yeah, I
Oh,
think that's the rest are
awesome.
pretty much themes that we've went through. So
Awesome,
thank you all.
awesome, awesome, awesome. These are great problems to solve, and very valid ones at that. Let's move on to the next problem. What is the problem with tailoring to the audience? This was the second most like biggest problem that you all said in the survey. I understand it can take time. That's definitely a problem, right? The context switching. What else? What else is coming up in the chat, Elena?
I'm not hearing others about presenting the context in a different way. For me, it's always been the executive team would need a different level of information. It was in what is it, why does it matter, a level of information with some supporting data or details. While at the R&D team, it was more, are there risks, are there blockers, is there something I can do about it? And then Prasanna has her hand up or his hand up. So
I
what
just
was your input?
it's less of an input, just I'm trying to understand, like, can you give some additional information on this specific column so that maybe we will be able to share more inputs. It's not clear what exactly the talking point is.
Regarding the tailoring the audience
Uh,
or the gathering
Tailoring the
inputs
audience.
also,
No, gathering
Prasanna?
input is all good. Tailoring the audience.
Got it.
Mm,
So tailoring the audience, in the survey that was sent out, and no worries if you didn't take it, but like there was a survey that Elena and I sent out where we tried to break down where the problem areas were that you were spending most of your time on. And the top two areas that surfaced was gathering inputs and tailoring it to the audience. Specifically, I'm assuming tailoring it to the audience means you have to send different inputs to different audiences, to the product team, like the broader product and technology team, to if you're a VP of product or a CPO, then you have an executive team peer. You might have board level responsibilities on that. And these are completely different audiences that need the content in a completely different way. So my,
Mhm.
humble assumption was that from that survey. But Prasanna, if you have a different point of view, I'd love to hear that too.
No, no, good. Sorry, I did not take the survey, hence the lack of misunderstanding. Sorry
No,
about that. But
no,
now it's
no
very
No
clear
problem.
to me.
worries, no worries.
Yeah. But do
Alice, and
you
I think
agree?
this is
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Go for it, Elena.
Alice, and hopefully this is Alice Wong, I know, not actually having sufficient or the right information from the team to be able to tailor
Oh,
info
yes.
effectively to the audience. And to build on that, Christina's point was we talk about executives, but also the customer updates or the external audience updates. So some of that, is there an opportunity to make our updates go beyond the four walls?
And I'm going to show you some tactics where really, hopefully, you come out of this feeling, I have the framework. Now the sky's the limit in terms of kind of what I could do. So you could tailor your your content to various types of audiences. It just depends on how you're setting things up and training the system to be able to respond to you that way. A lot of your inputs, whether it was gathering inputs or whether it is tailoring to the audience, and you guys are all a sophisticated audience, which I, completely appreciate and respect, is that it is about setting up the system. It's not just about a point solution that works for now. We're going to, in 2026, and you're going to see this reflected here too. What is the system that you're building that would actually work for you, which is a combination of various types of like AI elements coming together. So when you're trying to solve the problem of like the quality of the content, etc., or insufficient information, etc., these require some serious training of the systems to be able to get there. And I have seen anything from like 3 to 6 months for you to be able to get there. So we're going to, for the context of this, do more of the initial setup and actually check some boxes in terms of getting to an output. Training and fine tuning is a very, very important part that we probably won't get much time on to do this in the context here, but hopefully you'll know that that is an important thing to focus on. Um, Okay, let's move on. So if these are the 5 steps and we have identified more details of the problems in specifically the 2 areas that are taking most time, let's move on to the solutioning piece, which is what is the AI solution that would actually solve the problem? And do we want to have human in in the loop in this step or not? So I'm just going to kind of like drive this for now, and I'd love your feedback on this, which is there is always an AI solution out there, especially when it comes to agent, that we could build an all-in-one agent that does all of these steps, as part of a single agent performing these tasks. The second option is we actually break this down like we have by the workflow, by specific steps, and actually, manage it very differently. So for instance, the trigger is a simple automation. The inputs is again an automation, and I'll show you how. The synthesizing is LLMs are, I mean, that's their job. That's what they do. So use LLMs, to be able to do that. Tailoring it to the audience, again, based on custom instructions, you could do that. And then distribution, Q&A, maybe you want to have a final look before it goes out. So a human in the loop would be a very appropriate step for that. Now, these are the 2 options available for us. We are going to go the system approach, not the all-in-one agent approach. And I'll tell you why. My experience of working with agents with many different companies and tinkering it personally, and all the research that is actually out there actually says all-in-one agents are underperforming across the board. Agents are intended to be more specific in terms of tasks and goals. So you can actually think of each one of these as like specific agents, even if you may, which then will have an orchestrator of agents. So we're going to build a system. We're not going to build an all-in-one agent. We're going to build a system which is a combination of intelligent automation through Zapier, one of my favorite tools. And the second is an LLM of choice. My choice for this purpose is just basically ChatGPT, a ChatGPT project. Any questions on this before we actually move on?
There's
Okay.
a bunch in chat, but I'm trying to answer them directly in chat. So I think we're
So,
ready.
all right. So here's what we're going to do. For the first step, so we have 3 levels of AI variability in terms of how to approach this. The first is we're going to simply automate a few steps and keep a few steps manual. So we automate the trigger via Zapier. We keep the gathering inputs manual for now. We synthesize using an LLM project, and we use the same to tailor it to the audience, and we distribute it via regular email. The level 2 is again what I'll show you is we automate or use an agent to be able to gather the inputs. Now, this is one aspect where you guys all said you're spending way too much time and there is high variability. And then the third level is you bring all of this together. So I'll show you level 1 quickly, and then I'll show you a combination of level 2 and level 3. So this will take approximately the next like 5 to 7 minutes. So bear with me, and I'll take questions after this. Okay, can you all see my Zapier screen yet?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
It's loading. It's loading. Emailed you a code. I see your Slack screen right now.
Oops, no, that you're not supposed to see.
Yeah.
Give me a second.
Demos are always more fun when they're given live, but we do want
Yeah.
to make sure that you all get some of that practical experience that Suba's course is known for.
All right. Do you see my Zapier?
Here we are. Woohoo! All right, more heart
Now,
emojis, please.
now it's a whole different conversation. Why Zapier? Why not any other tool? And yes, we have and I have my reasons why. I think Zapier is one of the better automation-led tools, which actually gives us the opportunity to be able to combine automation, LLMs, and workflows together in one workflow system. My just humble 1 cent. And no, I'm not getting anything from Zapier for this. This is not a paid promotion. I just use it because I think it's a great product for like workflows. All right, so the first one is, so we're not automating the input, we're just triggering an email to your product leads that says, hey, your Thursday update should be ready. So we're going to do a test run. I've already set this up. As you can see, there is a Thursday 9 a.m. PT email that I've set up, and it's an email that actually goes to a specific set of folks. And you can see that when I'm doing the test run, it's actually running. Once this is done, I can go in here and actually, oops, I can, wait a second. And I can see, hopefully, that there is a Thursday product trigger, which basically is an email that says, this is your Thursday 9 a.m. reminder to check on your product updates. Enter your updates in this Google Doc. So again, first level, it's still manual. And ensure to check them before Thursday 5 p.m. And then we'll move it into ChatGPT for synthesizing, right? So now your teams say by the end of the day, um, enter all their inputs here. And I don't mean to trivialize the step. This is a step where there's a lot of follow-up involved. There is a lot of variability. Priorities can change. But through Zapier, like with an initial trigger, you can set up multiple triggers. You can set up triggers of varying priorities that actually use various channels, Gmail, Slack. You can then text them, when it's like Thursday 4 p.m. and the update is not there. So you could do a bunch of like variability in terms of setting automation in Zapier also. So now the inputs are here. All of your PMs have entered their inputs. There is some Slack discussions, and there is some Jira ticket samples that I've entered. I obviously cannot, use this and send this out. So what I do is now the synthesizing and tailoring to the audience. And this is as simple as in ChatGPT. Do you guys see these projects that I've created? There are
We
these
do.
two projects that I've created, which is weekly product updates to all and weekly product updates to e-team peers. Now, you could decide to create a multitude of different types of projects to be able to do this, but this is the simplest way to synthesize and tailor to the audience. How? Through custom instructions. So in here, I've entered a bunch of instructions, which is to my ability, a structure, and then what I feel like all audience will actually appreciate from an update. Now, I can go here and show you now to the e-team peers, I've shared a very different type of like instructions. Where they have executive cognitive load. So we only have to show what is materially changed, decisions and alignment, decision support artifacts, assume high context, prioritize what is changed, etc. So these instructions are very different. And by the way, I have researched these instructions extensively for both the all audience and the e-team peers audience. I will give these instructions to Elena, and in her post Substack article, you'll have these instructions that you can create a custom project with these instructions very quickly. So let's see. Now we're going to do a weekly product update to all. Create a product update to all with this data. And you'll actually see same data input, same prompt, but a different custom GPT project will actually give you different results. And again, here, I don't imagine that at first cut, this will be great. Like for me, when I'm reading this, it's like a little overly positive. In a week, buyer conversion improved meaningfully. Checkout reliability took a step change. Like, so I feel like it's a little over, positive. And I want to kind of be more realistic and ground it in more data, which actually it does, talk about like the data, evidence behind that. So this is where the fine tuning and the training of your AI system is important. We're not going to have time to spend on that, but you could definitely follow up on this and say, hey, be less flowery, or like don't use language, extremely positive language across the board, like just be realistic and like state the facts. So we could definitely do that. Now, take the same update and go to your e-team peers. And paste this. And just because the custom instructions are different, it should actually show something different. The structure is also different that I've put in the instructions. So it's about having an executive summary, what our priorities are and how we're actually progressing, very data driven as always. E-team conversations is a lot about how do you manage risk? How do you manage trade-offs? What's the tension that we're actually feeling? Big E-team CPO level conversation with boards and peers. So, let's address that. What decisions we've made, what's the near-term focus? Again, is it a perfect update? No, but as you can see, one, it is different than the all update because of the custom instructions, and you can fine-tune this to be able to be, more relevant for your company. And then the next step, final step, is you copy this, put it in an email, and then send it out to the audience, which, by the way, you can also automate on Zapier if you want. So we did level 1. We automated the Zap. We kept the inputs manual. We used an LLM to synthesize, tailor to the audience, and we just distributed via regular email. Now we're going to do how we automate and use an agent to gather the inputs. And Bharati and the folks who actually, gave feedback on the inputs, hopefully you'll find this more relevant for you. I can see the chat lighting up. Thank you all so much. Just 2 more minutes and then we'll get to the questions. All right, so the first thing is the workflow of this is a little different than the other workflow, right? Because here you're not asking for your product team to give you inputs. You're actually telling them, hey, the inputs are already there. Go and check the inputs and sign them off before it goes to an LLM to be synthesized, right? So the trigger is actually different when the input is automated. So here, let's run the test. Let's see that. Let's Let's see that the email goes out. And again, you can, through Zapier, set various levels of triggers at various times. This trigger took me literally under 10 minutes to set up, just FYI, to send out an email. So multiple emails, think 5 to 7 minutes each step, but think of the automation efficiency that you can get over a period of time with this. All right, let's see if my email has come. Yes, it has. Now, this email is different because it says, this is your Thursday 9 a.m. reminder that your product updates are available already in the Google Doc. Please ensure you check them prior to Thursday, as this will move into ChatGPT, your CPO, right? So now, how do you automate the inputs? How do you actually make sure that that doc is ready with those inputs? So this is possibly the more complicated kind of AI workflow system that we're actually setting up. But at one level, it's actually simple because it's about what is the inputs and what's the outputs. So here, again, every Zap or every agentic workflow starts with some trigger. So there is every week, there is a schedule actually that runs. The next two steps are my inputs, where I'm taking a Google Doc and I'm taking Slack messages and actually taking those as the inputs, putting them through an OpenAI ChatGPT kind of like LLM, and then creating a new Google Doc as the product inputs. Now, you could configure the inputs differently and you could configure the output differently. So for instance, if you want to add Jira here, you can. I tried adding Jira, but one, I don't have a commercial Jira license because I'm a consultant, and the clients that I work with, I did, sign off with one person that I could use it, but Zapier was not signed off to integrate with Jira. So I can't show you the live kind of like Jira instance of how this is, but you can add Jira as another input in this. You can add product board, you can add Asana, you can add Monday, you can add all of those as specific inputs. I've just added Google Docs and Slack as the input for now. You can change this LLM of choice. I've seen a lot of enterprises skew towards using Claude. You could do that. You could change the output, not a Google Doc, but actually an email or any other form of actually content that you actually need. Just think this is an input, there is processing, and there is an output. Here, I want to take a moment and tell you the difference between setting up an agent and setting up an agentic workflow. Now, what you are looking at here is an agentic workflow, not an agent. An agent is a single digital solution product that has a goal and has autonomy to be able to perform that goal by connecting with various tools and performing actions. An agentic workflow is an orchestration of many steps, predefined steps, which is a combination of agents, copilots, assistants, automation, etc. Does not have as much autonomy, so it's predetermined. Like you can see, the workflow is actually built. And more importantly, it's more deterministic, as I mentioned, versus agents are more probabilistic in nature. And you know what the great part is? An agentic workflow sometimes does not even need an agent. It is a combination of just various AI tools and assistants that actually come together. So this is an agentic workflow that's going to solve this problem. So now let's do a test run. And what it should do is actually create a Google Doc for us to be able to look at. And I know we're running up, we're probably a little delayed. So in case this fails, I have a sample Google Doc that that it actually did, create last night. So I'll show you that. So for some reason, it's coming as successful. Okay. Let's see if there's a new Google Doc that has been created. Yep, there is a new Google Doc that has been created with a prior Google Doc of the updates and the Slack messages with key accomplishments, risks blockers, and next week's priorities. Now, this looks messy, but that's what product inputs actually look like. Now, we take this and do the same thing that we did the previous step, which is create a product update for my e-team. Again, you can actually automate this step too. You can, through an LLM, through Zapier, actually say that this information is going to the LLM at a predefined time. You could do that too. But for the purposes of this, we're just keeping that step, as more of a human in the loop right now. And again, you can see there is an executive summary, there's a progress against priorities, risks, trade-offs, decisions, just my framework. But again, you can feel free to edit your instructions and again, fine-tune this according to your audience. And now you have something that you can copy, paste, and send in an email to your e-team peers. And we can do the same thing as I showed you earlier with a different project to just all of your team members. That's the workflow. That's the agentic workflow that helps you go from triggering an email. Now, bring this back. That goes to, so we kind of saw level 3, which is we automate the email trigger. We automate gathering inputs again through Zapier. We use a ChatGPT project with custom instructions to synthesize and tailor to the audience. And then just a regular email distribution. So that's your agentic workflow for product updates. And again, it takes a bit to set it up. It takes some to keep fine-tuning and training it. But once you have, I can guarantee you this will probably go from like 2-3 hours a week to less than 30 minutes a week that I have seen with many different product leaders, and I've seen with myself too. Managing, global product teams in various time zones. Oh, thank you, Elena. So what did we learn today? Just quickly, what is the learning summary? The first is that the workflow clarity matters more than model choice. I always tell my clients, if you have a broken workflow, no AI or agent can actually solve that problem. Fix the workflow first, apply automation, then apply AI to make it more intelligent. And the next step is to apply agents to give it more autonomy. So really, at the heart of it is mapping your workflow and ensuring that you have a process that works for you. The second is we gave it a lot of constraints. There were a lot of predeterminations. I gave it custom instructions, etc. But those constraints actually, help to create trust because they are the reflection of your cultural communication, guidelines, instructions, etc. So feel free to use those freely and effectively. And the third, which we could not cover in a live session, is how do you fine-tune this, on a regular basis and investing in it, both from a judgment, but not just from a training standpoint. It's really adapting it to your team and your audience. And again, this should take the time that it takes, about half a day for all of you to less than 30 minutes. That's the challenge and, hopefully my promise also to all of you. Oh, we are.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Shubha, for going deep into a workflow and really making it actionable for us. I know that there's a bunch of questions of, hey, what if the underlying data is wrong? And I think you pointed to that the way to get here is start with the prompting, start with figuring out what you're getting back and see what's wrong. Just like I think one of you mentioned, I think it was Dawn, of, hey, there's a program manager that just sends it verbatim. And how do we even know that it's right? So some of the details here that Shubha mentioned is getting into that data, starting with the prompting, starting with a custom GPT, N8N, Gemini, pick your LLM of choice, figure out what's working for you, figure out what your company allows and is paying for, because that could be another choice that your company has already made for you. And then once those pieces are right and they're feeling like they're in the space that you need them to, start combining them and saving yourself, putting in the investment to save yourself time. So yeah, thank you so much. I know that we really went deep and took up the time, but hopefully this becomes actionable. But one thing you all can do is send in questions. We'll put this together. We'll share the video. We'll share the workflow that Shubha mentioned. And if there's additional questions, we'll answer those so you have the collateral and you can start applying it directly to your work. But really great meeting you all and having the chance to talk to you and go a little, not too deep into all of the work, but also wanted to do some self-promotion at the end here. So Shubha's got a great course coming up at the end of January 26th, on really building enterprise-grade AI agents. And for anyone who is in our lightning lesson today, you can use Take 20 off to get 20% off there. And then and here's a couple of examples I'll share the presentation. And I am running 2 different courses, one really focused on what does it mean to be a chief product officer and the skill set to run a business. And so that's go-to-market strategy, finance, executive presence, and influence. So that's coming up January 15th. You can use the code LIGHT for 20% off that one. And then finally, the other big time sink for us, or really what about 2/3 of the people I talk to feel like they can get better at, is communication. In fact, my last class that sold out, I had doctors, I had people in the business of communication, I had builders. And so this one's really focused on how do you use AI to help you get out of the cutting and pasting of data to how do you present yourself within the business, and then how do you represent your business externally to stakeholders, the board, media, and your customers. So thank you all for joining us, and hope you have a great rest of your Thursday.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you again, Elena, for having me.
Thank you for joining. This was super actionable, and I hope everyone loved it as much as I did. I know Emmy and Florian are sending hearts, and so some of the other folks are too.
Yes.
Have a good holiday season, and see you all in 2026.
Yeah.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.